I was redesigning my bathroom and jumped on Pinterest for inspiration. I found some beautiful vanities, but when I checked the prices, ouch, $1,200, $1,700. I knew there had to be a better way. So I decided to build my own custom vanity for a fraction of the cost. And spoiler alert, it turned out just as good as anything I saw online. In this video, I'll walk you through the entire build step by step. Whether you're a beginner or just looking for a weekend project to upgrade your space, I've got you covered. For this build, I used 3/4 inch birch plywood for the construction of the cabinet and drawer sides and 1/4 inch plywood for the cabinet back and drawer bottoms. I purchase all of my supplies at a local plywood distributor, so the pricing is much better than the big box stores. And for those of you who have watched my videos in the past, I finally purchased a table saw. I went with the buy once, cry once motto, as this one will probably be the last table saw I ever purchase. I used screws and glue for the assembly of the cabinet, as one side will be against a wall and the other side will be laminated with a 0.9mm oak veneer. I pre-bore all my holes with a countersink bit and used 2-inch SPAC screws. The screws act as clamps until the glue in the joint dries. I was able to get all my pieces cut from one sheet of 3/4 inch and one sheet of 1/4 inch plywood, so the total spend so far was $77. Add in another $5 for screws and glue and we're still under $100. I put horizontal stringers in the front and back of the cabinet to provide plenty of support for the countertop, also paying close attention to the placement of the screws, as the stringers will have to be partially cut to accommodate the vanity bolt. There's nothing worse than hitting a screw with a jigsaw blade. For edge banding, I'm using 1/4 inch oak strips that have been surfaced on all 4 sides. This will provide more protection than a typical iron-on edge banding. I purchased these at a home center for $14 each, which was quite high, but not having to mill anything saved me a lot of time. I carefully cut and fit each piece. After dry fitting all the pieces, I used my Boss Dog glue and painter's tape to attach the edge banding to the cabinet. I cut the width of the pieces slightly oversized so I could trim the edge banding flush to the cabinet with my trim router using a straight bit with a bearing guide. I used my cordless trim router to trim the edge banding. Not having to deal with a cord really helped me stay focused. I highly recommend the cordless trim routers. I don't think I'll ever go back to my corded ones. In preparation for applying my oak veneer, I used Bondo Auto Body Filler to fill all the screw holes and voids in the plywood. I would normally use regular wood filler, but after watching a video by John Peters from Longview Woodworking, it convinced me that Bondo was the way to go. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check out that video. I moved on to cutting out my drawer parts while the Bondo was drying. I would have preferred to use 5/8 inch material for my drawer sides, but I didn't want to have to purchase an entire sheet of material, adding to the cost of the project. And now that I have a table saw, I need to make a crosscut sled. The track saw worked fine, but a crosscut sled would be much faster. For the drawer assembly, I used pocket hole screws. Since my drawer sides were plywood, I thought this would be the best method. Last year I purchased a 3D printer. I've used it to make templates, jigs, and a host of other things I can use in the shop. I was motivated after watching several videos by Tamara at 3x3 Custom. It's amazing how accurate the printer is. I definitely need to make a video to show all the things I've made that help me in the shop. Another investment I've recently made was in the micro jig gripper and the smart push blocks. They really help me make accurate cuts and keep my hands safely away from the saw blade. I used an iron-on edge band for the drawer sides. I thought about using the oak strips, but I thought that would be overkill, not to mention add a ton of time. The Veritux trimmer makes quick work of it, and the finished product makes the drawer sides look like solid lumber, but with the strength of plywood. The drawers went together quickly. To make sure my drawer boxes are square, I measure from corner to corner and then clamp the pieces in place. This ensures the pieces won't move while inserting the pocket hole screws. The Bondo was now dry, so I gave it a quick sanding to prep for the veneer. Next up was to install my drawer slides. I'm using this new method and I'm really liking it. I temporarily place a board on the front of my drawer box to help align the front of the drawer slide that will be attached to the drawer box. I found this method really helps with an accurate installation. The 20-inch self-closing drawer slides were $15 each, bringing the build total so far to $155. To install the part of the drawer slide that gets mounted inside the cabinet, I used a scrap piece of 1/2-inch plywood as a spacer from the bottom of the cabinet. Once the bottom drawer is installed, I use that same piece of plywood to act as a spacer between the drawers. At this point, I was ready to glue on the veneer. I used a foam roller to apply the contact adhesive to both the back of the veneer and the side of the cabinet. After around 15 minutes of drying time, I used dowels to help align the veneer before sticking it down. I then used a J-roller to make sure I had a good bond on the entire surface. I have fabricated a lot of laminate in my lifetime, but this was the first time I've applied any type of veneer. The process is pretty much the same as applying laminate, but I really took my time as I didn't want to mess this up. If you're enjoying my content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel. It's free and it's the best way to support the channel. Thanks for your consideration. I then used my trim router to route the veneer flush to the cabinet and then did some hand sanding where the veneer meets the bottom side of the cabinet. I then used my random orbital sander on the edge banding to make sure everything was flush and smooth. Since walnut is almost impossible to find in my area, I was lucky enough to find a board of poplar at a home center that had a rich brown tone. I had never seen a poplar board so dark, so I cut it into strips, routed a profile on one edge, and used it for edging on my doors and drawer fronts. And now for the centerpiece of the vanity. I used a sheet of ARPA laminate called TUET. This dimensional laminate looks like wood, but has the ease of maintenance and durability of high-pressure laminate. Everyone who has seen my vanity can't believe it's not real wood. Although this was the most expensive part of the build, the cost paled in comparison to other fluted wood panels I found online, ranging anywhere from $40 to $75 per square foot. So at $7.50 a square foot, the TUET was definitely a bargain. Okay, I'm thinking that the best way for me to get this lined up, because those ribs, show through the back of the laminate sheet, I'll be able to use this to index and then put my board down as opposed to typically putting the laminate on the board. So let's give it a shot. Finger, drum roll. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Yes. Perfect. Perfect. That's the way to do it. Couldn't ask for better than that. So I trimmed all the doors and drawer fronts and then began to put a profile on all my edge banding pieces. I'm working on a design currently for a router table, but in the meantime, I'm using a temporary setup utilizing a piece of phenolic for my router table. I set up a 45-degree stop on the bed of my disc sander. This allowed me to sneak up on the cuts as I needed to be super accurate to get the best fit. At first I had tried to use my miter saw, but there was too much wobble in the blade resulting in out of square cuts. So I continued to cut, sand, and fit all the trim pieces for my doors and drawer fronts. It was super satisfying to get those tight joints. And the setup really helped me stay accurate, even with all the shaking I have, especially in my left hand. Guess I need to cut back on my caffeine intake. For the glue up, I switched to my Boss Dog brown glue to help disguise any glue joints. I really like the screw top as it allows me to adjust how much glue comes out at a time. Instead of a toe kick, I chose to use legs for the cabinet. This made it look more like a piece of furniture rather than a standard vanity. I purchased them on Amazon and was very happy with the quality of the legs. To attach the drawer fronts, I used an 18 gauge nailer to temporarily hold the front and then added a couple of screws to secure it. I then used 1/8 inch or 3mm spacers I printed with my Bamboo Labs 3D printer to get a consistent reveal between the drawer fronts. Using my Craig concealed hinge jig, I bored holes for my bloom hinges. These hinges are meant for doors up to 20mm or 7/8 inch thickness. I had a hunch I'd have to make some modifications due to the height of the edge banding. Too thick. Doggone it. Okay, so to try to fix this, I printed a 3mm, 4, and a 5mm like spacer to go behind my hinge plate. So I'm gonna attach this and see if this works. Alright, so I put these little 3D printed shims in here, and it seems to be doing the job because it was able to kick my door out far enough that I could get my reveal and make the adjustments. So now for the last one. I did some final sanding, applied a clear poly finish, and added some wooden knobs I bought off of Amazon. The contractor that replaced our floors graciously installed the Vanity, and this job was complete. I'm happy the way it turned out, and even happier that I saved all that money.